Yo, what's up, guys? It's Danny here. In today's video, I want to talk about why young men are single and why it's hard to really find a partner as a guy. And I'm not here to bash anyone, especially myself, because I'm a man, right? I'm a dude. I think everyone is flawed in their own way, and I think this journey of me trying to find myself and try to be single less is going to be a difficult challenge for myself because in life, no one really taught me on flirting skills, being a Casanova, which I don't want to become, obviously, because that's just not really a desirable thing to have, especially in the long term, because I know that, like, my life is going to be short, and when my time comes, it's like, what's the point of getting like different partners when I can just have one and just love them to like endlessly, right? And I think that's the most important part that I really value about just having a partner that I can talk to and also care about them forever throughout my life. And I want to share a statistic that made me want to really talk about this topic because 63% of young men under 30 years old are single in the United States. And I think that modern young men are lonelier, more depressed, anxious, and purposeless than the last two generations. We are slowly failing men as a society as we, continue our life and, trying to rebuild and, create a society that is fairer. But in fact, the system is failing us as a man. And what I noticed is that from the research, we have seen that men are 4 times likely to be suicidal, less likely to go to college, and less likely to be civically engaged, which is like voting, and volunteering and helping out society. But why is this the case? Is this like a social or economic issue that men are facing? But yeah, as a psychology student, I want to share my thoughts on why most young men are struggling in finding a partner for themselves. And I think the primary reason why men are struggling to find a partner is because of social media. And if you guys think about it, before social media existed, it was easier for a man to approach and talk to women. Therefore, there was no dating apps. It was all about physical connections that made relationships thrive. Friends were easier to talk to because everyone was active, not scrolling on social media. It was about proximity, closeness, and trust. Trust is important. That made traditional dating authentic. Social media has killed dating because there are endless of people that you can connect with, but it's incredibly harder to commit to someone. Now, for example, if you were to pick out a partner on a dating profile, and naturally you would choose someone that is compatible with your personality, your occupation, and profession, right? But once you get into that talking stage, or maybe perhaps you pursue them, like going on a wonderful date with them on this dating app, suddenly when you see their red flag, their true nature, you're most likely to select and pick a new partner, if that makes sense. Like for me, if I was on a dating app, I think I would, see a red flag and like, oh no, I'm good. Like, I would probably find another person, another girl that treats me right, or, have this certain type of quality. And then it leads to like more competitiveness in finding a new dating partner. I also want to share that women are being highly selective according to a researcher. Now, again, I'm not sure if this is right or true, but what they're trying to say is that they're on dating apps, women are now being selective. So it's not like all women are, selective like in real life. In fact, it's, more of like an online thing. So from what I've seen here is that these dating apps is mostly men. And it says here that approximately 90 million people who use location-based dating apps globally, about 62% of them are male. So that's interesting. And that lessens the chance of men finding a successful female match. And so they said there's a high ratio of men to women. It's like 4-1. And then they also give some weight to the theory that dating standards for women are more selective. So in a survey of Tinder usage, men spend 7.2 minutes in the average session, whereas a woman spent 8.5 minutes as they consider their options. So here, what they're saying is that men use less time to select a partner, while women spent a little bit more time to find, another partner as well. And another thing they stated is that men tend to swipe like on 46% of profiles they're shown, whereas women only like 14% of men's profiles. And here what they concluded is that women are selective because they want a man who is emotionally available and stable. And to extrapolate on that, they want a man that is emotionally intelligent. They don't want a man that is, too trauma dumping, if that makes sense. They don't want a man that is unstable, right? They want a man that is, in the right mind, in the right time, right? So you want a man that is not trauma dumping, right? You don't want me, just like sending you a long paragraph to a woman, and that woman's gonna be uncomfortable because they don't know what to do and to handle your situation, your events. So that's where therapy is important. You want to have some sort of a positive cope mechanism to like really resolve your problems. And I feel like for me, I didn't have that type of resource or support. So I think it's important to reach out and get into therapy because therapy is such a potent and also, terrific thing to have. Like, I think it's really important. And then another research article that also stated why men tend to be more anxious and less emotionally skilled in approaching women is because of the COVID pandemic. And for me, I think that's true because when I was in high school, it was my sophomore year. Actually, no, end of my freshman year. It was really stressful at the time. I had to distance myself from my friends and my family because of COVID. I don't want to get into this disease, and die from it, obviously. And I didn't really have anyone to really talk to. And for me, I think what I did to escape from this stress, this depression, without having friends to really talk to is, playing video games, like playing Valorant, playing Minecraft, playing Call of Duties, whatever. Call of Duty, bam, that's the virtual world. And that's what they basically support. That so they cite how women have withdrawn from intimacy, likely because of how much stress they were dealing at the time, and put their focus on academics again during COVID. And this might be triggering, but it's true. The researcher noted that men have turned away from reality and into the virtual world. Young men are watching a lot of social media, the hub, and getting their needs from online platforms rather than going outside. Another statistics shows that approximately 76 to 87% of 18 to 29-year-old men are watching the hub. Even more concerning because it leads to, ED. So if you guys don't know what that is, search it up. And lower libido, so less activity, if you know what I mean, men, my boys. Anyways, so again, watching the hub if you do that. So yeah, what researchers are realizing is that our generation is more anxious, more withdrawing from interpersonal relationships because of technology use. And this also goes back to my point, how using technology for an extended time also increases your loneliness problems, right? Sorry, my phone just popped up. Anyways, so guys, please, 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 please go outside, talk to women, socialize, and don't be anxious. Try to get yourself in there. Don't try to think, this rejection is going to kill me. In fact, it's going to make me be confident. So I just want to leave my final thoughts on how to help men, to find a right date. And I know this is not a professional advice because, in fact, I am not a licensed psychologist. I'm not a licensed marriage or, counseling person. So you shouldn't be listening to my video. But I think these are more general or representable of what you should do as a man. So I think how we can help men is by supporting them unconditionally. I want you guys, if you guys are dudes, to go out there, man, like socialize. I think support your guys, your boys, your friends, unconditionally. Changing the social norm that you guys can be vulnerable, that men can be vulnerable. I think the most part that I understand about myself is that I suck at opening up about a lot of things because my dad taught me to be silent, to be strong, to suffer in silence. But that's not true. Sometimes you have to open up yourself a little bit more and, obviously try to not be so, hard on yourself, right? There's so much burdens that you can take. And I think a good advice also is like focus on your mental health and physical because you never be able to pursue a proper relationship because a bad mental health leads to a bad physical health, vice versa. So have a strong mental health. Additionally, stop watching the hub. I think for the most part, from my experience, watching the hub like hinders you emotionally. I think you're prone to be more depressed, more isolated, and feeling anxious when approaching women because you have overstimulated yourself in watching these fantasies and watching women do all these weird acts, right? I mean, non-Christian acts. So get yourself into a relationship with God. I feel like having a relationship with God has helped me in stop leading into temptation, right? Not lead into lust. So lust is the most difficult and problematic part that men are facing. So men, please, 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 please focus on your passions, your dreams, your purpose. And when you're dealing with these addictions, please find help. But yeah, anyways, I just want to leave it off there. Again, I am not a professional licensed therapist. I am not trying to say that my closing advice is good, because in fact, there's no good advice out there to really help to find a date. In fact, dating is just luck for me, I think, for the most part. But yeah, anyways, I don't want to leave this video too long, but I appreciate you guys watching this video to the end, and there's gonna be more videos like these. So thank you, and peace out.